joining us for our first ever chamber caffeine and conversation. First off, let's thank Michael, of course. He's the very helpful gentleman here with Unplugged Pub. Is that better, Karen? Yes? Okay. So yes, thank you for the space. Thank you for the assistance this morning, and thank you all for coming. We have our three candidates for Town Board of Aldermen positions here this morning: Steve Augustine, Ben King, and John Mark Gallagher. Without any further ado, I'm just going to ask Steve to come on up. They're going to each speak for about 5 to 10 minutes and then be available for any additional questions or conversation after. So again, thank you for coming out and enjoy.
Thanks, Karen. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karen and I were joking earlier. It's we've been in this bar at 8:30 in the morning, but it's generally the other way around. But man, again, Nancy and team, thank you for having us. And again, I hadn't been in here until just yesterday evening, but this place is awesome. Like it's really well done. So thanks for having us. Again, my name's Stephen Augustine, running for alderman, obviously. My background here in Bryson City, I moved here in 2000. As a young lad, I moved here and all I knew is I wanted to be a kayaker. And things have evolved over the years from that. I ended up going to college at WCU. And thank you, go Cats. But I knew from an early age that this is where I wanted to be.
We don't know what causes them to come on.
That's I thought it was somebody's phone at first, then I saw that thing moving. Yeah, and so like I said, moved here in 2000, and I've had to leave a couple of times for job chasing and educational reasons, and all those times that I've left, it was all in an effort to get back here. I really love it here. I think Bryson City is a unique small town, even in our area. There's a lot of other small towns, but I think we've got kind of our own thing going on over here, and I love it for that. Both, it's such a great mix of, we've got great business in town, we've got a ton of artisans here, whether it's craftspeople or artists or what have you. That character is very unique. Like I said, having so much of the town as part of the national park and public lands is really impressive. I just really love it here. So, all said and done, this is where my wife and I, who's in the back, wife and child in the back, our 2-year-old Luke. So, if you hear some yelling, that's him. This is where we choose to live and raise our son, and so this is our place. And so, as far as stepping into the alderman role, it's really just wanting to help kind of work with and help the town move forward, as we're going to be here forever. We want to be a part of it, and so that's my goal for running in this race. So yeah, thank you.
What do you do?
So I work for a company that builds canoes and kayaks. The company manufactures all that in Greenville, South Carolina, and I'm the Southeast sales rep for that company. So I cover Georgia, North and South Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama. Yeah, you're very welcome. Yep. So, sales.
I have a question.
Oh yeah, sure. Just go ahead.
So, running for alderman, what do you think are some of the needs that we have that you can maybe be an influence on making happen for the town of Bryson City?
Sure. Yeah, easily. So, obviously you've got, some of the less glamorous things. The sewer obviously is a big one right now, and Ben and the mayor and the team have been working on that project for a bit now, and that seems to be going where that'll get done, and we'll move on from that. And there's other things in that realm, but I really think that Bryson's kind of on a tipping point right now of we've got just this incredible amount of tourism coming here, and it's almost overwhelming. The meeting on Monday night, the town council meeting on Monday night, it took Janine like 20 minutes to get across town. We've got like 2 stoplights. So, is figuring out which way we want to go with tourism. Do we want to go full on, Gatlinburg or not? Or do we you know, I'm not necessarily for that, you know. What's that? Yeah. So I mean, some of those decisions need to be made, but you know, you've got to grow, and you've got to create opportunities. You know, the housing is another big one. You know, we hear about that all the time. It's like you can't. There's no places for people to long-term rent here. You know, and if you're a homeowner, you know, we're in a position now where we're talking about renting our townhouse. Unless you just care about the community, why would you long-term rent? You know, there's no, you know, your hands are tied legally. You know, the money that could be made in an Airbnb type setup or an overnight rental type setup is very lucrative. It's hard to say no to that. But if you believe in the town, you know, you've got to create places for people to live. And so, you know, I think that's something that's got to be addressed. And I've just really started reading into what some other places have done. And again, we're so unique here in many ways. You know, there's not a canned answer that's going to fit that. And so it's going to take the whole team to work together and figure it out in the community. And you know, there's things happening. So that's my goal, is to just see some, you know, especially with the tourism, is to grow that responsibly. And maybe, you know, as far as growing it, it's tricky, you know, but it's hard for me to tell anybody else what to do with their businesses, and so that's the balance, right? So, anybody else? All right.
One more question.
Sure. No, absolutely.
You stepped into it. It's not so much growing tourism, it's managing it, because it's already here.
Right. Yes.
So with that being said, if you drive around town, you're going to see there's a lot of need. There's potholes everywhere. Landscaping is unkept at best. And it's a little embarrassing at times.
Yep.
So, you know, hopefully some of that money can be used to make this place even more of a beautiful place for people, you know, while you're here visiting. So, you know, I hope that the consideration is to look more into that aspect. I mean, you mentioned sewer and the infrastructure. I think those things are part of the infrastructure we need to take a look at as well.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Just, you know, there's been some great projects done. You know, the street lamps look great. The sidewalks, when they were first done, looked great, and now that you've got some weeds growing up in them. And I know the town board is working on that. You know, the street crew is you know, they're making inroads into getting somebody into that and working on that sort of those projects. And so I agree. You hit the nail on the head. It's not so much growing, but managing, and I would agree with that 100%. So, yeah. Thank you. Ben, John Marr.
You didn't really use it either.
Oh yeah.
I'll try to speak up and not hold this. Just something to wave around. I want to do that. So I'm Ben King. I am one of your current aldermen. Been on the board for 4 years now. It has been a whirlwind of activity when it comes to learning everything that goes on inside the town. You don't really understand all that it takes and the little resources you have most of the time to tackle all of these situations. And then when it comes to balancing those decisions about what do you tackle first. And over these past 4 years, that's really assessing this big, broad list that grows every day, and then trying to tackle those things that need to be tackled first. And understand that process may look like nothing is getting done, but I assure you it is. There's just some things that have to happen in the process. One of the biggest processes right now that is unfortunate is the way we've set ourselves up as a town. You know, in boards past, squirreling away money for a rainy day fund was the main goal. And we have a huge rainy day fund. This is not something I was a fan of before I was on the board, not something I'm a fan of now. But getting to a point where I have seen actual change in that has not happened yet. We have, earmarked that money for certain projects, but to get those projects to happen, other things have to happen. I'm not saying that we completely eliminate our rainy day fund. proposed by our auditor to have at least a 6-month rainy day fund. So that's what our plan is, to never run it below that 6 months. But really the main goal is to keep it between more of a 6 and 10 month rainy day fund, in case anything ever happens. I mean, luckily with COVID happened, but we were in a position where we didn't have to step in and dip out of those reserves. But I am trying to get us to move forward with projects and use those reserve funds to make these projects happen. Town boards of the past, not just Bryson cities, but a lot of small towns, their focus was grants forever. It's like, oh, we'll just wait till we get this grant, or we'll wait till they get that grant, and we won't do any projects until we get a grant, because we're going to save this revenue for just over here, just in case. That's good and all, but grants are going away. I mean, everybody else is strapped too, and all these small towns have found themselves now in a position way behind the ball of, hey, we're growing like crazy, but we didn't plan. We didn't have, we weren't making gradual improvements to our sewer system. We weren't making gradual improvements to our water system. We weren't knocking out or putting money away to save for, say, a new garbage truck or new facilities. We all know those things are going to go bad eventually. So how do we be proactive about that and not sit and wait and be reactive? And I think that's something that I've really tried to focus on changing with our town board and the way we operate, is to be proactive instead of reactive. Now, a lot of times I don't have any control over that, because as soon as you try to be proactive, something like breaks and you have to spend all your money on that to get it fixed. But that's the overarching goal for me. It's focusing on proactivity, getting us set up for the future, planning 5 to 10 years down the road. Even if I'm not here, I'll still be living here. And I want this town to be set up where it's going to be successful for many things down the future. So when that comes to things like housing, housing is a big issue, and it will be a big issue. A lot of our current homes are either lived in by residents or they're rented out on a nightly market. And that's because tourism is our industry. And we understand that, but there's going to be a breaking point at some point where there's not going to be, with tourism being our industry, yes, everybody wants to nightly rent their home because that's where the money's at. But where do the folks live that need to be here to support the tourism industry, the jobs, the restaurants, the retail? Where do they live? I mean, do they live in Silva? Do they live in Cherokee? I mean, the housing's nowhere better in our near. I mean, the only place you might could find housing that was reasonably affordable would be Andrews, just because that's quite a commute to come over to work a job. But I really do believe tourism is the industry for Bryson City. We're not a manufacturing town. We're not a technology town. Our industry is tourism, and I know that tourism can support families. It can pay people salaries. A lot of people don't believe that's true. They think the only thing that can pay people salaries is a traditional, manufacturing job, working for a big corporation that pays out benefits, or it's, but I disagree. And I try to show that through my own business to my own employees, that yes, I can support you and your family through this tourism business so that you can buy a home, have a child, grow a family, and live in Bryson City and work in Bryson City without having to go look for a job in a bigger town because you're not able to support it. So that's a big push for me, is to try to get that idea across, that as we move forward, our industry is tourism, and as we harness that, how do other businesses take hold of that, hire employees, pay them salaries, and we grow together. There's many hiccups with that process. There's going to be different changes, there's gonna be different opinions, there's different business owners, there's all kinds of things like that. And we can all work together to get to that point. But even as a town, I'm trying to get us to, just recently, this past meeting, we were able to raise our starting minimum wage to $13.50 an hour, plus benefits. I was really disheartened at the fact that how low we pay some of our employees. And yeah, there's been a big push this year by everybody, but I think the big push from us was we can't operate a town without employees. We can't operate a town without this team of people to pick up the garbage, to fix the water leaks, to replace the pipes. And when they were getting offers from other government organizations or other towns to be like, hey, how about you come work here? That made me go, well, if they leave, who are we going to get to replace them, especially at that pay? It's like we can post jobs and not get any applications for months. So it's really a push from the board, I think, to get our wages up to be more desirable, because if we don't have a team of people to run this town, then we can't. But the first step in that process was just this last week when we raised that starting base pay to $13.50. Some of our lowest paid employees, some of the people that pick up the garbage every day, which is it's a rough job, are getting paid $11.65 an hour, and had been for, so it was. And again, they aren't just they have retirement, they have health care, and all these other things to add in. But at the end of the day, sometimes you need to have enough to take home to feed your family with. As you get older, those benefits are like, yeah, I've got benefits forever. That's great. But some of these young workers that we have that come in, they're not necessarily focused as much on that as they are, hey, I've got 3 kids at home. Like, how am I going to afford to feed them on $11.50 an hour, $11.65 an hour? So we got this one step done this past meeting, and I plan to reassess, well, if I'm here, whoever's here, the town board, that's my push, is that they reassess again come budget season in July to look at our salaries as a whole and our team as a whole to try to raise that. Because when we raised that minimum wage, we also got really close to some people that have been here for a while. So we need to, there needs to be some longevity incentive built in there. We've got some employees that I know one offhand that have been there working for the town for like 17 years and doesn't even make $15 an hour. To me, that's sad, and I don't want to see that for the future of the town. It needs to be addressed, and it is going to be addressed, I believe. I think even if I'm not there, the board sees the benefit in that. And to address before it gets asked, the beautification of the town, or the lack of beautification around town, that has been a very big issue this year. You can ask the town manager about how many times she gets calls or texts or visits from me to complain about such, which she then relays to the streets team, who then goes out and is reactive to the situation. Which has led us to, again at this last meeting, to add a new position to the streets group, whose main goal is to focus on these things that aren't getting done. So when that comes to, and this year, and I know, so we weed eat a lot, okay? I don't think we should be spending a lot of time weed eating, because the time we're done, with Hospital Hill, you got to go back over to Schoolhouse Hill and start again and come all the way back through. You could weed eat every day for a week and then start over and do it again. Not a good process for us, and it's not a good use of paying our employees and their time. So this new position, one of the requirements is that they get their herbicide, pesticide, training, it's not training, certification, so that we can spray the weeds. and eradicate them. That way that we're not going every week to weed eat them. You know, there are going to be places that have to be weed eated, but the thing is to get it under a manageable approach. Again, being proactive. We spray the weeds, then the weeds are gone for at least, I don't know, 3 months hopefully, and we can attack it in that manner. But this new streets group position is really going to try to help with this beautification process, because my thing with the town is we either contract this work out or we hire a new position, because it needed to be contracted out because it wasn't getting done. And it's not that our streets crew wasn't doing anything, it's that with this small group of folks that we have working, they get pulled in different directions. The streets crew, if we have a big leak, they go fix the leak. If somebody doesn't show up to ride the garbage truck, they go ride the garbage truck. You know, the streets crew is the one that gets pulled from to go help in all these different areas. They sort of cross-trained. So a lot of times that's why things fall back. But it's still not an excuse or an acceptable excuse for why things got to the point where they did this year. And they got so rough looking. I mean, Jessica from the Smoky Mountain Times, actually wrote an opinion piece about how poorly the town looked, and as soon as I read it, I took it into the town manager's office, and it's still posted there, that we need to do better here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and it's sad that it got to the point where the editor of the newspaper decided that it was so bad and nothing was getting done that as she walked her dog around town, she made all these notes to write a whole article about it. It's at that point it's gotten way left behind, and it needs to be more in the forefront, especially if tourism is our industry. Yes, sir.
If you wanted to keep talking or have a question.
Yeah, sure. I mean, either way.
I've only been here 9 years, so help me understand the sales tax issue. Usually in tourist towns, the sales tax is a huge revenue source, and we're always talking about the money. Could you help me understand how our local sales tax work, and where does the money go, and why can't we raise local sales tax on this tourism to help beautify the city?
Yeah.
I don't know what the pegs are. What percentages? Who gets what?
So
why doesn't the county know?
So the way sales tax is, the town definitely collects the majority of the sales tax for this county. We are the only municipality inside the county.
What percentage is that?
I mean, it would be hard for me to say offhand.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna throw out a number because it'll probably be wrong, and somebody will write it down.
It's already on Facebook.
So, the majority of that sales tax is, everybody knows that. This is where everybody comes. Not to say that there aren't businesses outside in the county generating sales tax, but this is the hub. The county gets all of that sales tax, and it is then redistributed back to the city either in two different methods, either ad valorem or per capita basis. I believe right now it is on the per capita basis and not ad valorem. So it was always, in the past, per capita was better because it was based off the amount of people that lived inside the city, so we got more. But if they switched it to ad valorem, and this is up to the county, I believe the city would get more now that the property rates have increased. So it goes off of the value of property in the ad valorem method. But again, this is up to the county. The county gets to decide how they distribute that sales tax back to the city.
Makes sense. Politics down to get
Yeah,
more money?
I think, it's probably a sticking point for them. The more we get, the less they get. It's, I think they could be petitioned for that. Definitely, we're supposed to have joint meetings every year with them, and we've had like maybe one or two. To me, they haven't been super beneficial, and this was one of the things with the meetings, even before I came alderman, it's like none of them were very beneficial because nobody talked about anything. They just said yes or no. You know, and I know at a voting meeting that you move forward with votes, but during a workshop, we need to work on stuff, and that means going back and forth and talking, discussing, doing working matters to develop a solution. So, yes.
Is there any talk about possibly adding a tax to say like a lodging or a hotel tax? I mean, I know we have a tax that goes to the TDA board, but that money is spent to try to get more people here. And I don't really think that's our issue. I think the issue is managing the people that are already here. Is there any hope that maybe talking to the TDA one about maybe releasing some of that money to help with that? I know there was some controversy about the flower boxes around town, and they were nickel and diming about that, but I think they have a good little bit of budget of money that's coming in from these tourists. And it certainly would seem that they should be interested in helping, and if not, is the town interested, or would they be interested in talking about the possibility of adding to that tax? And can they add to that tax?
So with the TDA and the county and the city, you know, 3 different organizations. The TDA collects that nightly room tax for the entire county. The city could collect their own nightly room tax, which would require them, now this would have to go to legislation, and it would probably never get through. But anyway,
You say legislation would have to go to the state?
Yeah, have to go to the state to allow them to do that. And it doesn't sound like it would be very easy for that to happen. There would be, and at the end of the day, 2 years down the road, probably wouldn't get it. And you can only tax up to 6% total for the county. So that means the city could only tax 2% because the county would still get 4% TDA tax. And that money has to be used on tourism-related marketing or tourism-related projects. It's all very specific, and
But that's just the
infrastructure
TDA,
upgrades.
correct?
Yes, and that's the thing, is that's for them to administer and them to disseminate. I mean, there are ways for them to go into different projects and do things, but it's very tricky, I feel like, with what's under their umbrella and what they're required by legislation to spend that money on.
Is there legislation forever? Is there a license to go forever, or can that percentage be changed? Can that be altered?
Pretty much. I mean, the county could go up to the 6%. The county could request.
Can they have money taken away from TDA?
No.
So they're there forever?
Yep. I mean, unless the county commissioners decided that they wanted to not have a TDA anymore, a nightly room tax. If they voted, I don't know exactly how that process would work, but the county commissioners would have to petition to get rid of that through the state legislature. But
Okay. One more real quick before I forget it. How much of an emergency fund do we have?
a little over 2 million,
So how many months is that considered to be?
15, 16,
And you want us to stay where?
between 6 and 10. Yeah.
That's
And it grows. I mean, it grows every year.
So what needs to happen to get some of that released?
We need to spend it. That's the
So
thing.
what do we need to do to help you spend it?
Well, exactly. I need the board to agree to spend it. I need 3 out of 4 to go, yeah, let's do that.
So is there projects, like you said, what projects are waiting that we want us that are waiting for that money to be released?
Ben,
I know, I'm taking up a lot of time.
Oh, okay,
Ben,
sorry.
if you want to sidebar with Ben later,
That's
I
fine.
just don't want
Can I ask you a
it
question
to
real
look
quick?
terribly imbalanced
Yeah,
right
so I ask a
now.
couple questions real quick.
Actually, I mean, it's.
If you want to catch,
Yeah, let's sidebar with
They
Ben.
get John
Sorry, I went into
Yeah,
local stuff.
it's already 10 after, and I don't want John Mark to feel like he's not getting any
Why
time.
can't we go ahead with it?
What's that?
Why can't we go ahead and send it to the legislation? I mean, you're always gonna be standing in the same place if you never take a step forward. And you have to take those leaps of faith. And, I mean, it's a step. If it gets past no, we made that step. And it's a door, it's a hey, we're here. We're bringing attention to our town, Bryson City. I mean, I not make a good point.
It is very true.
As if maybe I should just tell some jokes and lighten the mood and get away from taxation without representation. Which you can't hear me? Should I do the mic?
Turn it on.
Did that work?
There you go.
does. Good morning. My name is John Mark Gallagher. I'm running for alderman in the city of Bryson. And thank you for coming this morning. I know to me this is not early, but I know doing things like this is a little early. But as I was saying a few minutes ago, maybe I should just do a stand-up routine because it looks like a comedy club. It's called Unplugged Club. And I have no jokes whatsoever, and I'm not even a funny person, so let's forget about that. I'm the new guy on the block, new guy in Bryson City. My wife and I moved here about 3 years ago to take over the McKinley Edwards Inn. I've been in hospitality most of my life, self-employed. I've had real estate offices. I had Century 21 franchise for about 5 years. Hated it. Sorry, Chester. I love business. Hated to sell real estate. Don't ask me why. It's not for everybody. I also built custom homes, had a construction company, and have run hotels. And we're currently running the McKinley Edwards Inn. And like everyone else, just so busy we can't see straight. So it's 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week, with a couple of breaks every couple of months. But like the old adage is, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. I know Ben's busy. I know Mr. Augustine is busy, and I know all you are busy. And that's not going to change, hopefully. Something I've discovered in my life is diversity in communication. It's great to have different opinions, and it's great to be able to communicate those opinions. And the diversity in Bryson City, I think, can be changed. There's always talk about, because I meet a lot of people. I meet plumbers who say, well, we don't want Mexicans here because they'll take our jobs. But we need those people. I think Bryson City needs people like me, new people who see things through a slightly different lens. Not a rose-colored lens where everything is peachy keen and beautiful, but I think Bryson City is beautiful. Does it need help? Does it need work? Do the streets need cleaning? Of course. Most people really don't see that. They're not looking down at the street until the pothole literally trips them up or causes them to fall on their face. That's not what I see. I see Bryson City as a small gem. Outside looking in, when we first saw Bryson City, I fell in love with it immediately. Now I have to be honest, our original goal was to be here just for a couple of years. Because this to me was an assignment, but that's changed. My wife and I have a 15-year-old son. He's attending Swain High. Quite proud of him. He was asked by one of the cheerleaders to escort her for homecoming. Completely different for him because he's a very shy and introspective young man. And he loves being in school, he loves being here, and so do we. I've started many businesses, and in some small towns where I've started a business, it was always tourist related, and several times we didn't have a chamber of commerce. So we created one. We didn't have, I know you're gonna think this is crazy, a men's golf association. We had a golf course, but there was no continuity. There was no fun in it. Just go play golf. So we started a men's golf association, which I was president of. We didn't even have a real estate organization. There was no MLS. Everyone, it was a free-for-all. It was really living like the wild, wild west. Everyone was on their own. We had to create an MLS. We had to create an organization. I lived in a town where the population were growing every year by thousands of people. There was no place to live. All of the employees had to be bussed in. In town, thousands of tourists are trying to do whatever they do. There was no ATM. There were 2 banks. There was no ATM. Now this goes back 25 years. But 25 years to you here in this town, or in this country, 25 years you had ATMs, but at the time where I lived, there was no ATMs. Tourists would go into the bank to try to cash a check or try to cash a money order, and they would wait for 6 hours. we developed or we created a Chamber of Commerce. And we basically said, we're not paying our taxes until the bank puts in an ATM. Now, we leveraged the bank, and they put 2 ATMs in town where people could get out money. It sounds like an easy thing, a small thing, but we worked together, and we were able to solve some of our innate problems that we don't even think about here in this country. I'm talking about Costa Rica, back in the late 90s, where my wife and I lived. So when we arrived at Bryson City, again, as I was saying, this was supposed to be an assignment. I was going to be here a year or two, get the inn up and running, put policies and procedures in place, and then hand it over to the owners on a silver platter. But we've discovered that we love it here, so we're going to stay. Now, what happened when we made that decision? Our life would change to a certain degree. And what would that mean? That would mean getting involved. And how? We weren't sure. And when this opportunity came up, I thought this would be how I could give back. By being available, by helping streams of communication, and by helping to try to solve some problems with the past successes and the past experiences that I've had. Not only running and building a business, but creating job opportunities for people. How am I going to do that? I haven't the slightest clue at this point in time. But unless we start talking about it and start communicating with Chamber of Commerce, now I look here and I don't see my constituency. How many people here live in Bryson City and vote? Karen? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. 5 out of 25. That's not a good percentage. I know that. Chamber of Commerce. Exactly. And hopefully it's a powerful organization. Hopefully they work well with the town to help solve some of the issues, because whether you vote or not, you're paying taxes. Everyone here has a business in Bryson City, and you're paying taxes. And you want to make sure that those taxes are used to improve the city, which will improve your businesses. It's all interrelated. And I'm just hoping that the communication between all these organizations, the TDA, the chamber, the county, the city, that we're all working and pulling a team of horses in the same direction. And I've had challenges with that in the past with businesses, and we've resolved those one small challenge at a time. So that's why I'm here today. And I hope you guys welcome me into the community. You have been so far. It's a great town, great people. My wife and I both love it here, and we're here to stay. Thank you. Questions? You don't have to clap. Don't clap. No, I can't answer them anyway, so Chester.
What do you think are some of the biggest needs that we have here in our town that we're not seeing being taken care of at this point?
I see too much property, and I see too many derelict properties and derelict vehicles and derelict housing that needs to be addressed. And I don't know if the city could do, and this is going to sound horrible, but I'm not sure if the city could institute some sort of eminent domain. If someone's not taking care of their property, we'll take care of it for you. And if you don't pay for it, we will. And if you don't pay us back, we're going to take your property and we're going to sell it, and we're going to do something positive with it. If you don't move that trailer, if you don't move that pickup truck, we're going to move it for you. We're going to bill you for it, and you're going to pay for it in your taxes. Or sometimes you have to have a good cop, bad cop situation. Hope that answers your question.
They consider that yard art here.
I know. Anything else, sir?
there is an ordinance on the books that says that the city can look at a piece of property, if the inspector looks at it and says, this is uninhabitable. So, Mr. Owner, please fix it. And if you don't fix it, then we have the right to tear it down. And that's what needs to happen to some places that are unbelievable.
I agree, and it's exercising that authority. I think sometimes small towns and situations like ours where everyone knows everyone else and everyone's related, they don't want to upset the apple cart. They don't want to upset their uncle or their aunt or their cousin. And sometimes it just has to happen. It just has to happen. For the good of all, for the betterment of the community. And yes, I understand that, and I agree with you. And if that statute is on the books, we were talking about housing earlier, and this is aside from what you're saying. I just wanted to share this with you. They tried to hire a French teacher at Swain High. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, and she couldn't find any place to live. So now Swain offers Spanish and Cherokee. It would be nice to have French, but there's no housing. Originally, and this is not new at all. I don't know if anybody knows this, but the original intent of McKinley Edwards Inn, the building behind the house, that was McKinley Edwards' home from 1927 until the 80s. Annie built apartments, 6 apartments in the back of the house, and that is actually the inn at this time. But those apartments were built in the 40s because she saw a need for housing. I've talked to Kate Welch, who was on the board for many, many years, and we've had many good conversations together, and she's 86 years old, but let me tell you, she pulls names and numbers out of the air like I cannot believe. She was telling me that as a young girl, she worked in a restaurant here in Bryson City, and the tourism in Bryson City in 1952 was hot and heavy. So the train and tourism is nothing new to Bryson City. And I just find some of this information useful for the future. The past can sometimes help you move into the future. I was born in 1952. I can't imagine what Bryson City looked like in 1952. And how much tourism it had, but she said it was the gateway then, it's still the gateway. I kind of like that. Nada más, as they say in Greek. Yes, Karen.
I'm Karen Bartlett with Remax. I have one of the oldest buildings in town on the corner of Everett and Island Street, about 1900s, 1908. I just want to let you know who I was, and I've been here for about 20 years, so I've seen a lot. But this year, I've seen more homeless ever, and when I ask around, I hear remarkable stories. That just yesterday I heard that they were living underneath the bridge. I've heard of that before, but now I've heard they're living underneath the train depot, and I've heard they are living in. I've seen them in the tractor trailer back in the old pallet factory, and I've also heard that they're being dropped off from Asheville. They're being fed, and then there's no place for them to go. So I was just wondering how you thought you might be able to help that problem in downtown Bryson City.
Let's move them back to Asheville. I mean,
I've actually heard that that was something they were doing.
that's horrible. I wish I had an answer to the world's homeless problems, and specifically Bryson's homeless problems. I mean, I was at Walmart, what's today? Thursday. I was at Walmart on Tuesday. You cannot shop in Walmart because they have all of their products in the aisles. You try to get from the bread aisle to the deli, and they have all these cold storage in the middle, and in between all of these cold storage bins are all their products. You cannot make a left or right. You have to go the entire length of the store. Why? They are 22 employees down. I leave Walmart and there's a girl sitting in the shade with a sign that says recently homeless, and a young man standing on the corner of the highway with another sign, and I'm assuming that they are together. I didn't read, I was in a hurry, I didn't read both signs completely, it was too much information. But to see a young woman, college age, or in her early 20s, sitting on the side of the road in Walmart, in the Walmart parking lot, I'm recently homeless. I wanted to pick her up and take her into Walmart and say, hire this girl, and give her an apron. Have her push a broom for the broom sweeper to be able to clear the aisles. So it's an attitude, it's a mental attitude. They're gonna make more money sitting, I'm assuming, they're gonna make more money sitting there, collecting, than they're going to get paid by Walmart. That's also a sad state of affairs, which relates to employment and minimum wage. When I first got here, I would pay casual labor $12 an hour. I can't find casual labor. I do all my own gardening. I got lucky this last weekend. My son had a friend spend the night, and I said, I'll give you $15 an hour to do some gardening. And I only need you for 4 hours. And they did about 2 days worth of gardening for me, but I paid them $15 an hour, 15-year-old kids. They thought that was pretty good money. They also wanted a tip. You're gonna tip us? Okay, well then take us to Burger King. I said, well, that's another $20. Took them to Burger King.